Gotta keep putting up with this day after day. He's trying to kill me. Day after day, he's chasing me. Day after day, I've got to run for my life. Day after day, I look and see that I can't have a quick battle. This thing doesn't end easy. And when you're in the middle of this thing of being what God wants you to be, there's battles that you end in a day, and there's battles you can't end in a day. There's enemies that are humbled in a day, and there's enemies that aren't humbled in a day. But you know this, whether it's in a day or whether it's in a year, that this God is your answer, and you trust the Lord, and you're able to say, I know this, that if I'm going to have a victory, it's got to be God's way. David had to maintain his integrity when he was fighting the enemy. When Saul was after him, and there came a day that he looked and saw Saul, and he could have destroyed him. He stood in that moment and he said, don't touch him, and neither will I. For the word of God says, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. I've got to do it God's way. I've got to win God's way. I've got to fight the battle God's way. I've got to go through the test God's way. I've got to go through the trial God's way. I've got to do it God's way. There's order. There's order in battle. There's even order in the midst of enemies. Lord, what's your way in this moment? What's your way in this battle? God, it's got to be your way. It's got to be God's way in this moment. I'm trusting God, and sometimes God seems to be slow about giving you the victory. Sometimes it seems so slow, but maintain your integrity. Stay right real with God. Don't you borrow from the powers of darkness. Don't you cheat because you're facing a cheater. Don't you hate because you're facing a hater. Don't you hypocrite because you're facing a hypocrite. But know this, that the weapons of your warfare are not of carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And know that God is able to bring you through, but you're going to know a lot more troubles than you already know, and you're going to rejoice. God will bring you through. David said there were two things that hindered him. He said, for by thee I have run through a troop. There were people who were there to see he didn't win. There were people who stood before him and said, you're going nowhere. You're not going to go anywhere. I'll see to it that you don't go anywhere. I don't know why it is that sometimes it's in marriage. That's why you ought to thank God if you got a good Christian wife or a good Christian husband, because there's people who don't even understand why, but they say, you'll never go anywhere. And the husband loses and the woman laughs. The wife loses and the husbands laugh. There's a sense of competition. There shouldn't be competition in a marriage. There ought to be community where the two people agree together that we're going to go higher than this, that God's called